can you find any reason, good sir, that the FBI would not have solved the pipe bomber crime based upon the evidence in their possession, including cellular analytics that we were advised by whistleblowers that under 200 possible cell numbers were identified and presented to the FBI and the illegitimate J6 original Liz Cheney Committee? Why did the FBI not solve that crime, good sir? Mr. Speciale, you can take great honor to know that Mr. Moskowitz would have treated you with much more kindness had you been an illegal appearing before this committee.
That's a lie, but okay.
Mr. Romano, have you been deposed by this committee, sir?
No, not by this committee.
Would you be willing to participate in a deposition by this committee?
Absolutely.
That's going to happen. Mr. Chairman, the COVID-era government oppression was very real and impacted American citizens. Our freedom to travel the land was greatly restricted. Our freedom to congregate, our freedom to worship, our freedom to speak. The government oppression that America suffered in the COVID era leading up to the November election cycle of 2020 was unprecedented. The Biden FBI did penetrate legitimate First Amendment communications in groups of American patriots who had the audacity to object to government oppression. The Biden FBI, trained to manipulate and agitate, did foment rage within these groups of American patriots. The November 2020 election cycle was compromised. The Biden FBI did have undercover agents and confidential informants embedded within the rally crowds on J4, J5, and J6. And the Biden FBI did conspire to entrap MAGA Americans prior to J6 and then successfully entrapped several hundred Americans on J6. The Biden FBI and DOJ did unrighteously persecute, arrest, and imprison entrapped Americans. The FBI Director Wray did lie to Congress repeatedly about all of this abhorrent government oppression against the American people. President Trump did rightfully pardon the Americans who fell prey to the Biden FBI and DOJ. And within months of his inauguration, the Trump FBI did identify and arrest the J6 pipe bomber suspect using only the evidence that had been in the possession of the Biden FBI since 2021. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to present for the record a letter dated January 11, 2021, to the Administrator of TSA, signed by Benny Thompson, then Chairman of Homeland Security Committee, and John Katko, the Ranking Member of Homeland Security Committee, a renowned moderate New York-leaning liberal Republican, now gone from Congress, identifying Trump supporters as insurrectionists and suggesting efforts by the TSA to disrupt the travel of white supremacists and other domestic terrorists, to quickly deny air carrier services to individuals identified as members of those groups, and to encourage efforts to identify and add to watch lists the perpetrators and members of American organizations that had the audacity to challenge the narrative that was presented under the COVID era and the oppression that the American people suffered.
Without objection.
Mr. Nance, regarding drawing from your expertise, long-standing with the FBI, can you find any reason, good sir, that the FBI would not have solved the pipe bomber crime based upon the evidence in their possession, including cellular analytics that we were advised by whistleblowers that under 200 possible cell numbers were identified and presented to the FBI and the illegitimate J6 original Liz Cheney Committee? Why did the FBI not solve that crime, good sir?
Well, I think the rapidity of the Patel administration or directorship in solving this case demonstrates exactly why the Ray FBI failed to do so. I mean, as has been stated before, this was a matter of leadership. I think this is also a matter of messaging. I think that, and people need to understand the relationship between DOJ and the FBI, that the FBI investigates criminal activity, or should be, and DOJ conducts prosecutions.
But how could the FBI be that inept? I just ask you. To me, I believe it was purposeful. I believe they identified their suspects in the under 200 numbers, and none of them fit the profile of the so-called alleged white supremacist mega activists, so they stepped away from that investigation. I believe that there's no way they could be that inept. Mr. Chairman, my time has expired, but my passion on this subject has not. Mr. Nance, the investigation of the pipe bomber that commenced under the Trump administration FBI seemed to be initiated just based upon a focused effort of leadership within the FBI to direct investigative assets and procedures to put, quote unquote, a new set of eyes on the existing evidence. That's where they intended to begin. They had no way of knowing that the evidence that they were already in possession of, that the FBI had been in possession of since 2021, would produce a relatively short list of potential suspects based upon cellular analytics of possible cell phone numbers that could have planted these bombs. They had no way of knowing that the evidence in their possession that they were going to put a fresh set of eyes on would produce a solid suspect and ultimately probable cause for an arrest. Their intention was to review the existing material so that they had a good investigative foundation to move forward with an aggressive investigation and to solve the pipe bomber's case. Does that sound like the kind of solid leadership you would expect out of the FBI?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you would expect from, what we used to call our country's leading law enforcement agency.
Well, I concur. I think they're reclaiming that recognition, and that solving the pipe bomber case was quite significant. The cellular analytical data. Is it true that the FBI and our intel services has contractors that specialize in the collection of that data and the analytics of that data, and it's not necessarily a direct CAT FBI employees, but that the FBI itself uses contractors to provide some of that data as additional assets to the FBI's own CAT. Is that correct?
Yes, to a limited degree, yeah.
To a limited degree, would you say to a specialized degree?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So let me just clarify, Mr. Chairman, and for Americans watching, whistleblowers came forward. A particular whistleblower came forward in 2022 that is a specialized contractor for cellular analytical data that had initiated his own review of cell data after J6 happened, and the J6 pipe bomb event was revealed to America, and that investigation was ongoing. And this whistleblower identified telephone numbers and provided them to the FBI, and, we're advised, to the original J6 Select Liz Cheney Committee, subcommittee, the Select Committee. And that data went nowhere. I ask again, Mr. Nance, Mr. Speciale, good sir, Mr. Pierhota, how is it possible that the FBI could be that inept? Would you say that it's reasonable to suspect that there was a purposeful intent to ignore the evidence that they were in possession of? Or is it more likely that the FBI was that inept? Mr. Nance.
I think it's a matter of narrative. I think the controlling narrative at the time was that the threat to the American people was coming from the RMVE threat, the white supremacist threat. That was the constant.
Well, how would they know without analyzing the data if it wasn't a mega Republican? How would they know? Because that's how they identified alleged white supremacist domestic terrorists. If you were a mega guy, a mega American, you were in that category. So how would they know it was not a mega guy unless they had analyzed the data?
Well, it's possible that they knew that Cole, perhaps in late 2021, was a black male individual from Woodbridge, Virginia, that did not fit that narrative.
You agree that that's possible?
It is possible, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I find that to be a reasonable and disturbing suspicion. And to my friend and colleague, the ranking member, I would suggest it's not a conspiracy theory if it turns out to be true. So we shall see.